Hello. Today's presentation will be centered around French farce. This is the French interpretation of the farcical theater tradition. To completely understand French farce, we must first break down French farce into its two parts, French and farce. French, to begin, is an origin of France or its inhabitants. During the time in which George Feydeau and French farce in general were coming about, this was the late 1800s to early 1900s, France was going through a time of economic divide, split amongst three separate classes, the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy. The wealthy during this time were capable of enjoying their indulgences, a certain amount of gluttonous acts, so to speak. For example, affairs, overindulgence of food, or overuse of wealth. Now, while they were able to experience this in their day-to-day life, they wished for a different vehicle to purvey such acts. This is where French farce comes in. Farce is a comedic performance, sometimes an interlude between acts, that showcases the buffoonery and actions of the actors to highlight the emotion and humor present within the audience. It also originates from the French word farce, which is stuffing. On the board, I have set up a timeline to showcase French farce's travel throughout the centuries. To begin, we have Greek satire. Satire in ancient Greece was used to keep the atmosphere of a performance light. Multiple performances, such as the Sophoclean plays Oedipus and Antigone, were quite morbid at times, even dark. The satires that would show up between the two acts would give the audience a time to relax, to smile and joke. For example, in Oedipus, the adulterous acts that were exhibited between Jocasta and Oedipus, that were adulterous as was aforementioned, were quite problematic for cultures. However, the satyr, the man that would be conveying the satire, would come out on stage and make jokes about it. This was where farce found its foothold in the world. Next, we have Italian farce. This was the first large step towards French farce. It took the comedic aspect of French farce and turned the plays into full length, so that no longer were they just reflecting upon the plays that were currently going on, but were creating their own situations. And this is when they took the buffoonery that was present and amplified it. The largest step, I would personally say, would be Commedia dell'arte. This is an Italian theater form that used the overuse of bodily movement and exaggeration to showcase the physical humor present within the pieces. For example, Arlecchino was a character in The Servant of Two Masters by Gino Goldani. And he was able to, a certain actor that played this character at a moment was able to do a full somersault holding a wine glass in his hand without losing a single drop, just to tell his master that he didn't want to perform an action. Next up, finally, we have French farce. This makes the jump from Italian to French. French farce takes multiple characters and places them in a bizarre situation. These characters have a variety of perspectives and objectives within their respective scenes. For example, A Flea in Her Ear, probably one of the most famous French farces, this was written by George Feydeau, has a group of adulterous, blusterous, and gluttonous individuals come to a hotel of ill repute under the pretense of a letter being sent to test a man's loyalty to his other half. And after French farce, it molded into bedroom farce, which will be touched on in the next slide. Here, I have three pictures, one of Commedia dell'arte, one of French farce, and one of bedroom farce. On the far stage right, we have Commedia dell'arte. This is Arlecchino and another character within his performance. And this represents the immense bodily movements that were performed in Servant of Two Masters and other comedias along with it. In the center, we have French farce. This man was quite literally caught with his pants down. He was caught in the act of participating in an affair. And this was the most important aspect of French farce because it was showcasing the gluttonous acts that were so common in France. Finally, we have bedroom farce. Bedroom farce, as I will now address, takes relations and amplifies them, and takes the situations that follow and showcase them up on the stage. For example, in this picture, we have Georges Feydeau. Georges Feydeau was known as the father of French farce, and he was originally both a French farce's playwright and an absurdist playwright. He wrote over 60 plays in his time, and he is most notably known for his creation of French farces known and passed down through the generations. On the next slide, we have two plays. These are of Georges Feydeau, and this would be A Gown for His Mistress and A Flea in Her Ear. These two are his most notable. A Gown for His Mistress was one of his first and most known performances that he wrote. It is about a man that hides his relations with his mistress, and after he attempts to hide as a doctor, his entire family comes in. In the end, though, through a little bit of deceit on his part and his friend, he was able to make it out of the situation. Also, we have A Flea in Her Ear, or as it was originally known, Hotel Paradiso. And as was mentioned earlier, A Flea in Her Ear takes place in a hotel of ill repute that multiple individuals go to for varying reasons, and they all interconnect. From two people that look utterly similar for mistaken identity, to multiple individuals believing that their friends and wives and husbands were participating in affairs. In the next, I will begin my demonstrations. My first demonstration will involve surprise. Surprise in the human psyche has always been related back to the fight, flight, or freeze mechanic found within the brain. Dating all the way back to ancient man, the fight, flight, or flee was used to react to something that surprised or scared one individual. From a demonstration, I will be using You Can't Take It With You by Moss Hart and George Kaufman, and a scene in which Miss Kirby is reacting to fireworks that are going off within a house after an immense conversation between her and her son's soon-to-be bride's family. I will be showcasing the flight position. The fireworks go off, and then Miss Kirby, ah! As you can see, she leaned back, put her arms up, and exemplified the use of gesture found within French farce. This, rather than commedia dell'arte, is different, for commedia uses entire body, while French farce uses arms and light gesturing. That is the end of my first demonstration, and we will move right on to the second one. I am going to be using Who Done It by Anthony Schaefer, and it was written in 1977. And it is a scene in which the detective has found out about an affair that is going on and is attempting to negotiate with the man involved with the affair. The gesture that I will be using is going to be the thinker. When a human thinks, they are exerting pressure on the brain through thought. And what is usually done to calm headaches is massaging the temple. So therefore, through theory of association, Humans have then touched their temple whenever thinking, as a moment of gesture. Here is the demonstration. Let us double it, for the sake of untruth, which makes 100, or at the current rate of exchange, about 25 pounds. Much too much for a light-fingered gentleman's gentleman. Let's say a third, 8 pounds for a week. As you can see, each aspect that involved information or knowledge was showcased through thought. Now, to relate back to me. Throughout my years, I have used a variety of improvisational gestures during my performances, in cases of which the blocking was forgotten. French farce itself uses improvisational gestures by the actors to showcase how they feel the characters feeling. And this has added to my arsenal of things I may use on the stage. Thank you for your support, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.